that's a danger to the design profession, and also the enjoyment or lack of enjoyment you will have on the job if someone just doesn't care about your crafts and you do.
Yeah, but what I'll say to that is that those companies will fail. Like we've seen, like this AI thing is just another iteration of engineering-led companies, and we all know what that means. We've talked about it before.
Yeah.
It's like, let the engineering team, they know a bit of it. This guy knows a bit of UX.
And we're officially live. We are officially live, exactly. I mean, this is just an experiment. I think I figured it out.
Ominous. Tell me more.
Very ominous. Yeah. I think I had this like multiple ideas in my mind for last few months, talking to designers, talking to you, talking to people on communities, design communities about the design market, with all these people being confused and not sure what to do. Should I use AI? Should I not use AI? Like, should I even go into design? Is it future proof? All that kind of stuff. Or people saying things like, it happened to me. I'm finally part of the gang because someone from a non-design department created a prototype and they're all happy with me and they are skipping my work. So there's a lot of tension and confusion going on. And I've been thinking about, was this always the case? Were we always the play ball of the company? Did people ever take us seriously? And did anything change really? That kind of thing. And I think it helps for people who aren't sure if they should become a product designer or how to handle these situations. So I think that's a cool thing to talk about today, because I really think it will help a lot of people.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, I think it's a hot topic. I've been more on Reddit lately, so I've joined forces with you, keeping
nice.
my finger on the pulse.
I will make sure to upvote your comments, even though you might get a lot of downvotes. I'll be that one single upvote you get.
I should start posting because I'm a lurker. I'm not a poster.
Yeah. Well, I'm not really a poster myself in terms of sharing a topic. I don't want to be too salesy over there, but I do comment.
Yeah,
quite a bit. I'm not a top 1% commenter. You get that little tag above your name.
Mm-hmm.
But I often do get a lot of votes. Let's just call them votes, because sometimes they're down votes, sometimes they're up. Yeah, so I'm quite active there.
Vote's a vote.
Yeah. So for example, one of the things that I figured out is that companies, and in isolation, it's not really new. I'm sure you'll be like, really, but if you have companies on a line from small to big, like how they respond to your design is often different for smaller companies versus big companies. And then there's a second line underneath it, and that's the UX maturity that people say, or in other words, how much of a design process is in place, like how seriously do they take design. And I think where you land on those lines really determines how likely it is that you will enjoy your work. Also how likely it is that someone from a different department will have this idea of, well, you know what, I can do it on my own. I don't need this designer. I have Claude. I can make this beautiful landing page on my own.
Yeah, until you watch it convert. But I think, like, to that point, I think a really good sign is to tell if which one of those two buckets you're landing is if ever there's an emergency and there needs to be something fixed that requires design, product, and engineering input. And whoever gets, if design is considered, then you're in that good bucket or that good sliding scale.
Yeah. Well, that's true. And I think if you're a junior designer versus a senior designer, I think the main difference is, the how comfortable you feel with the politics around design. A junior designer, in my experience, and not only from speaking to junior designers, but also from looking back at my own career, like 10 years ago, if a manager would ask me like, hey, we should put this thing back, I would be like, oh, of course, let's do it. You're right. But then today, 10 years later, I would be like, well, yesterday we talked about this and this and this reason to not put this thing back. What changed? Why do you want to put it back? And then you get more of a discussion. So if you have a large company, so you're all the way to the right on that line of company size, and or the design maturity is quite low, you have to realize that it's going to be more about politics and your soft skills, how you handle yourself being able to ask why and daring to say no to a manager, it's going to be way more important than how quick you are at mocking up a prototype.
Yeah. And I think even before that, what helps as well, I think soft skills work, but but even before that, you should know your product pretty well. It is like oftentimes when you're trying to push for ideas, there are edge cases or things you're not thinking about if you just arrived at the company, so you don't know all the ins and outs. I think what's super important, what's helpful, is that you really invest in understanding the product, how it works, even the edges, that admin section that no one uses, like knowing the full breadth of the product. So you have a baseline knowledge. And then on top of that, you can layer politics, understanding, like not arguing, but kind of collaborating, kind of pushing your ideas forward. Because oftentimes if you have great ideas, but you're not thinking about this and that, and then that kind of derails the conversation sometimes, especially if you're a junior.
Yeah. So, but that just takes time inside the company, right? You just have to run into all these edge cases, understand everything. Yeah. Oh yeah. How often has this happened to me, when you think you have this great idea and then you present it, you're all happy. And then the stakeholder's like, no, that's just not how the product works. And then you feel bad about yourself and maybe a bit resentful against that manager, because you're like, well, I took all this time to work on this and it's great and this is really user friendly. But then you started a losing battle because you just didn't know the thing you thought of wasn't possible because of all sorts of constraints. That's big motivational killer.
To solve that also, it's like show often and early, and be okay with showing like messy work. I've noticed a lot in like junior designers, just like it's the hide and then show the final product, which I get it. If you're very like, you're going in several directions, you're not quite sure which direction to go, but it's okay to get feedback on on a messy direction. And you can preface it with like, this is messy, this come ideas, I'm just trying to see which direction I want to go, would love feedback. It's like, oh, have you thought about this? And then into your example, those comments, this is not how our product works, are more well received, because it's like, I great, thank you. That's why I asked that question. That's why I showed my work early.
Yeah, it's still fine to push back. If someone says this is not how it works, it doesn't mean they're always right. There could be something behind it. Stress from their manager pushing on them, like, hey, we have to make this deadline. And all they're hearing now is this designer with this new idea, and they like it. But hey, all I'm seeing is this deadline that we're not going to make because of this extra work. So it's okay to push back. And if you share design with the stakeholder, to emphasize what you're saying, I think it's always necessary for you to also mention the type of feedback you'd like. Like, is it generic, high level? This is just an exploration type, prototype thingy feedback? Or are you like really close to a finished product and you're really looking at this like little nitty gritty copy feedback and pixel perfect feedback? So that's very important, to give them guidance on what you expect from them.
Yeah, famous last words is, "Hey, what do you think of this?" With no context or no filter. It's like you're going to get the worst type of feedback.
Yeah. Then you get this. The feedback you'll get is, "I like it," or maybe worse, "I don't like it," and then you get in this "oh, why" type situation. Yeah. So I think that's really important to consider. The design maturity in a company, and what that means for your situation. Like when it's low. Those people who now have the AI tools, like I think they were there before AI became such a mainstream thing. They were the people with their notepad and sketches and long documents, like already thinking they figured out the design, but the difference is now they have the tools to actually skip you.
Yeah, but there's a dangerous game there. Like, yes, we had a situation recently where prototype came down from PM, showed client, did discovery work, and then designer took it over, realized late that we forgot one piece of the product that was core to it. And our blinders were on, because we went from prototype to, okay, we'll just translate this to high fidelity, not doing like the design due diligence of like, okay, we need to make sure that what I think you can't skip ever is the journey mapping or user flow, because like that's the stage we're really thinking about, like, okay, what are the different pieces that we need to add on top of the experience? What are the different edge cases? What do you have to think about? And then moving to your prototyping. Often if you jump straight in, you're going to miss something. And then it'll show up late, and then you'll have to kind of scramble towards the deadline, which that's what happened. Luckily, we caught it.
How easy would it be for you to make the situation you're talking about, to make that more of an example so we can all understand? Like, or would that mean you had to explain something for 30 minutes? Because I know it's quite complex what you're building. Because I'd love to know what you mean by there was a whole part missing. Like, what does that mean?
Yes, meaning like so you have a workflow. So like there's an addition to a workflow. So let's say you were adding taxes, for example, on top of the flow. Like you have a wealth or a fintech product, and then you have a tax calculator. But that requires for you to collect information at step 1, 2, and 3, and 4. But you've prototyped 1, 2, and 4, skipped 3, just because you've gone down the happy path. So step 3 was forgotten because like that it wasn't included in the vibe coded prototype handed down from God. So you're missing what you're missing is that due diligence and making sure that you're covering all the different flows. And in that case, like we caught it late. We were at hi-fi. Sprint was starting, but one of our designers kind of like, something's off here, and then kind of went through it by themselves and then mapped out the experience. Like, oh, we missed this part, and this is crucial, because if in step 3 is the component that is the parent level element that kind of pushes all the information to the other sections, and that was missing.
Right. So, and then because of everything was set in motion already, and then you had like a few days instead of a few weeks to figure out this crucial step number 3.
Yeah. So like that, all that to say, like they may be able to create, anyone can create a prototype, but like the risk is if they do the design process properly and they create the prototype. But in most cases, there isn't this unicorn that exists that can do all the things.
In a way, also, it's not only thinking about yes or no, but also how you think about it. You know, designers have a cool way of thinking, I think, you know, to go really broad and zoom out and think about like visual hierarchy. You know, when I talk to more technical people, they're like, often, not always, but often they're like, can we leave this thing out? Because, you know, it's just less things to look at. But then a designer is like, okay, yes, it's less to look at and less cognitive load, blah, blah, blah. But adding this extra thing here, it does balance the page better. And because of it, the page as a whole is easier to digest. You know, that kind of thinking is, you know, not really available in a lot of non-designers, I think. And if you go to marketing people, it's the other way around. They want to put, in my experience, much more on the page. You want to explain everything, sell everything.
Yeah, and that there's such a balance, especially if you're working in iterations, like you're working in a product that you keep adding bells and whistles to. It often feels like the feature that you're working is the thing that'll change the world, that'll change the product. This is the thing. This is feature X is going to make this company a $10 billion company because we launched this feature. When in reality, it may just be something that has been asked a couple times from the customer success team. They really need this one small thing. Doesn't change the world, but it really helps. It really would help them. And then you might be in the mind frame of like, as you're designing it, making it so visible, meaning pushing it super high in terms of the hierarchy of the page, when in reality, it could be pushed down within a drop-down menu or a sub-menu. It just has to exist somewhere, but it's not the primary focus. So it's, I think designers do that very well, like balancing how prominent should this feature or this thing be within the page, within the application, and not so that like you're not all the different features that you have are fighting for space.
Right. Yeah, that's true. You know, just looking at something and being able to say this page or this dashboard or this screen is well balanced. Like, I think that's a very strong skill. And, you know, the designer's eye is what they call it. You know, and I don't think there's an AI tool that can get that feeling right of this looks well balanced.
No, because it's not reference anything.
No. True.
It's like, yeah, if it's doing AI, you'd have to feed it screenshots of this space. It's basically feeding off of what it's built and what you've given it. So does it feel well balanced? Sure. Or it'll come up with something. Well, my data set is feeding off this old article from 2007. Well balanced means this is my reference for well balanced. So it has no idea. Our judgment is still in play here.
Yeah. True. I think that's very interesting to know or to discuss next. The judgment thing, because with all the designers not sure what to do and AI wise or with their jobs and job hunting, you and I, we know the judgment is important. And attention to detail in the designer's mind and way of working. But before and after this whole AI thing, many companies just don't care about your judgment, right? And I think that's a danger to the design profession, and also the enjoyment or lack of enjoyment you will have on the job if someone just doesn't care about your crafts and you do.
Yeah, but what I'll say to that is that those companies will fail. Like we've seen, like this AI thing is just another iteration of, well, I think anyways, it's just another iteration of engineering-led companies. And we all know what that means. We've talked about it before.
Yeah.
It's like, let the engineering team, they know a bit of it. This guy knows a little bit of UX.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just offload it to AI. And then number one, it's going to cost a pretty penny for the credits that you're burning to figure out the UX part. And and number two, it's not going to look that great. And then down the line, you're going to have to pay for a designer to kind of fix it. And we all know what fix it is, which means like we'll do some treatment, but the underlying UX is going to be, there's so much design debt that it's going to cost you so much just to reconfigure or refresh or relaunch whatever product that you've built.
You might as well start from scratch. Before we continue, if you're feeling stuck in your design career, or if you feel like you're doing solid work while no one really notices, we've got a bunch of extra stuff on our website.
We're building a community for product designers to actually learn, grow, and get hired, not just scroll and collect more inspiration.
There's also articles, checklists, and courses.
All based on real-world experience from both of us. No fluff, just what actually works.
Check out designtablepodcast.com. The link is in the description.
Basically, right?
Yeah, because that's what you're doing. Like it feels like you're fixing something, but you're actually replacing all these little bits and pieces one by one. And it feels like you're repairing something. But if you look at it like 12 months later, you see you've replaced literally all bits. And it's just like you've started over.
You know what the biggest, like if you're a junior designer and you have to prove that your design work works, like most companies have like analytics tools that have session recordings. Now those videos will trigger people in the wrong or right way, depending on who's watching it.
Yeah.
If you actually watch people use your product, unmonitored, no user interviews, and watch them fumble away, that'll usually get someone. So like send those videos across to like the C-suite or the VP of Eng or product. We're oftentimes in blinder mode, ship and go, but actually watch how they use it. That'll put the brakes, have someone like pump the brakes a bit. It's like, okay, people are struggling to use our product.
Yeah.
And it's not a feature or an engineering challenge, it's a UX or a design challenge that needs to be addressed there.
That is something I found very inspiring in like, I used to work for a large bank and they were quite design mature. They had a design team of 50 designers. They had a usability lab and like the leader of the designers, which almost makes it sound like a Wild West Game of Thrones type thing. But the design leader, like he was one level below the CEO of the whole bank. So I think that's as good as it's going to get for a designer with someone so high up who's got your back. They were fighting this whole accessibility game. Like designers know it has to be accessible. The color contrast has to be right. Screen reader has to be supported. Alternative text, being able to navigate without a mouse. Like all the things you and I are just like, yep, of course. But then all the non-designers were like, well, that's going to be a lot of work. I don't want to do this work. So what we did, we asked someone, a colleague in the bank who we know had very visual. She wasn't blind, but it was very close to being blind. Like she had a lot of trouble seeing. We asked her to just go to the core flow of that part of the app, like registering something or whatever. And then, the typical design thing to ask, can you think out loud while doing this? And we literally had this video of this person being like this close, like to her phone. Like, I don't do it. Do I have to click here, or I can see it? And then getting stuck. Like, and then that video, like, we didn't summarize it or make it shorter or anything. Like, we just had like all these high level people just watch the whole thing start to finish, like as part of a presentation, and just, it's almost like rubbing their faces in it. Like, look, this is what happens. And then, of course, you got the data on how many people in the Netherlands had, poor eyesight and like what it means, and then really to hammer it, to bring it home, and that really helped. Just put in a quote of someone who's stuck, or a recording, or what you're saying, like the analytics recordings. Like, it really helps. I've seen so in practice. Yeah, they will not like you, but you will get your way.
That's it. Why it feels like design is under attack is just it's a visual thing that you can point to, versus like coding or engineering. It's like a black box. It's like no one from the marketing department wants access to the GitHub repo. They have been like, no, it doesn't work, or does it not? And that's a good example. So like, yes, you can nitpick on something that you see a designer do, but also if you, to your example, pushback, here's the visual or the recording of the example of someone using your shitty suggestion. Yeah. Take that.
Yeah, true. I got a question from one of our viewers / listeners that I think really relates to all of this, the design market and the state of it. And if you don't mind me putting you on the spot right now, like, I can read the question to you. I'm curious what you think.
Shoot it. So,
all right. So this person says, I've landed a 6-month internship in a medtech company developing OR devices. He's 4 months in currently. And like halfway through, more or less, he got his performance evaluation, and he's been told to use AI to generate screens and quote unquote improve my workflow. And then he says, the thing is, I do use AI, Claude, to consult, brainstorm, ideate, to come up with solutions to problems. And eventually, after quite some time, I tell it to visualize that design solution. Specifically, I took Jira tickets assigned to me, ran it through Claude, broke it down and analyzed it back and forth, user persona, constraints, edge cases, blah, 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 blah. And that's how I've used AI in my workflow. However, that performance review is making me doubt myself if I am really using it as efficiently as I thought I did. What's your opinion on this ?
I mean, it sounds like he's using it, but then I'd want to, like, if everyone says AI, this improve your workflow. So like that could have came out of someone watched a video on YouTube saying, oh, look, there's a new design workflow. And then the information was passed on. You should do that too.
Yeah.
But like, I would dig a bit deeper into why they're suggesting that. Like, first thing that comes to mind when listening to that is maybe you're slow. Maybe you need to kind of speed up in terms of like delivering. Are you late in terms of delivering your design deliverables? And are you holding up the team, the engineering team, et cetera, et cetera? Are you slow to respond? Like, that's what that comment seems like. It could be more complex than that, but I would like the purpose of the performance review is, yes, you're getting feedback, you're getting critiqued of what to do better, but like you have an opportunity to ask why and dig deeper. Like, why are you suggesting this? Am I to use AI because it's a mandate from the company? Is it because I'm too slow? Is it because it's better for handoff? Like, I would dig deeper, and you can ask that post performance review. I just wanted to clarify, like, the great thing about feedback is that it's the start of a conversation, not the end of the conversation. So you can now reach back to your manager and ask, like, I've been thinking a lot about my workflow, and I was curious, like, from your perspective, like what would be your goal in terms of like, what would be the desired outcome based on that feedback you gave to me?
Yeah, I agree. I like the start versus end of conversation, what you just said. I think it goes two ways. Like, the practical thing, like what you're saying about the flow, like I would just, if there's someone there at the company, I would see if I could find a senior designer to sit down with. I just ask them, like, how are you working? Like, what are your steps? compared to your steps, ask for help. Maybe ask if you can shadow this designer just to learn from the designer. Only applicable if there are other designers. So that's one thing. And then the second thing, of course, pushback, but what you said, but also it's one company and an internship. If they say like this, the question mentioned, use more AI to improve your workflow. Like it sounds to me like this company doesn't really know what they're talking about. Like that's a non-designer thing to say. And then interns, like very junior designers, they are so happy that they have something. Finally, I found this internship. They just don't want to push back. Being afraid that they might lose their internship or make someone angry, and then they just take it, and then, like you say, they watch YouTube and go to Reddit and or listen to some design podcast on YouTube like ours, and then they just believe what they hear, and it becomes this big monstrosity of forced AI use. Because you don't have to use it all the time everywhere. Use it where it makes sense, and you cannot really expect an intern to be super fast. That's why they're an intern. They're learning. So my message to a company would be, guide them more. Don't leave them hanging with some, fancy one-liner. Use AI more, improve, blah 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 blah. Give them a bit more guidance.
And like the trend is that most juniors or more people who are early in their design career are most likely to use AI in their workflow. And it sounds like this person is too. The more senior or the more jaded and they're more pushback. I've done this before. I don't need this new tool kind of thing. So like in that case, this person sounds like they've been using the tools. Like I don't like the feedback of use more AI. Like as a junior, you need more of the hard skills feedback. Like you need to learn to craft design work so that you can learn what you can accelerate with AI. Like we don't want to skip steps. You still want to learn to crawl before you walk and run. Like those are the skills that you have to strengthen. Later on, you can speed it up. Fine. But that just seems like skipping steps. Like that's the purpose of the internship is the company has some extra work and they're keen on kind of developing new talent, but also you need to develop that new talent. And that starts at the base level of like the things that like the reps that you need to kind of push in that design craft.
Yeah. Does that mean manual design work for a bit to really slow you down on purpose, give you more constraints on purpose?
Do all the manual things. Like you can do like meeting transcripts, fine. You can take your notes. You can digest the Jira ticket, put it beside your Figma board so you have something to reference of like the actionables, the features or things you need to kind of check off, fine. But you actually need to push the pixels because how like you're going to be like offboarding all your design thinking and design craft to AI. It's gonna hit a certain threshold of purple gradients that you'll never pass.
Yeah, that's true. So I mean, if he's been told to use AI to generate screens and improve my workflow, like apparently they don't currently think his workflow is good enough, and then use more AI is. What people often do is to tell you a solution without really telling you about the problem. Like if I tell you like, hey, Tyler, man, I mean, you should just use more AI, then you're like, whoa, I'm confused. He's telling me to use more AI, but it's way better to tell you like, hey, if we're working together now in this internship for the past 4 months and I think you're doing well, but I see that it's taking longer than I think it should take. Let's sit down and talk about where you're stuck and what we can do to help you learn, how to get faster and quicker. And, have you considered maybe AI in this place? It's, there should be, that's what I would do at least, there should be way more hand holding just I mean, they're an intern. They have to learn. Yeah. So I imagine this person is a bit in doubt, maybe insecure,
Yeah. Cause like, if you're an intern, like if you hire an intern, like it's the same thing with being a manager. You like, they don't work for you, you work for them. Like that your success is predicated on you enabling your team to do their best work. And these interns don't know what they don't know. So like you're essentially helping them at the start of their career. Use AI it doesn't help anyone. Like that person could have done that at home. Like what are they learning there if that's the feedback they're getting?
True. Like if the company considers you to just be like cheap labor, like I'm not sure what it's like in different parts of the world, but in the Netherlands, you don't really have to pay an intern. It's all connected to schools. So they pay you by giving you experience and teaching you stuff. But then some companies abuse it by just having like, well, I've seen this to my classmates, like they were in a department full of like 50 interns and one manager. It was really crazy. So maybe he's just in a bad place. But I don't know what. It's a question of 2 paragraphs. If you're listening to this, person asking the question, I'd like to invite you to send us another message where you really see if you can take away the things we aren't sure about. Like what else did they say? How are they supporting you? What's your workflow like in detail? You can send us an email or comment on YouTube again, because I think this is a cool thing to discuss because it's so real. It's from an actual listener and doing an actual internship,
which is so important. And also a soft pitch to your side, or book a mentoring session with Nick.
Well, in all honesty, I didn't even think about it. It was very honest and aimed to be helpful in this case. But
I'll be your salesperson.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I'm too modest. Yeah. I want to talk about coaching and that kind of stuff now, but I think that's maybe for another episode.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any closing thoughts on this whole design market and UX maturity and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I think design is still the moat. I think people are downsizing fine, but there's still need for quality designers, and quality designers only come out of junior and non-experienced designers. So do the reps, do the shit you don't like, you'll be good. AI is just a tool. The craft is the most important part.
Yeah,
and can't be outsourced.
True. I mean, it goes in waves. If you can sit out this wave of AI can do it for us, you'll be very in demand, because they will all run into a wall of shitty design and then they have to find someone to fix it. So see if you can sit it out and learn as much as you can in the meantime, if possible, financially, of course. I don't want to be naive there.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, but then you'll be good. I'm enjoying myself still.
Same.
And I think Tyler also, and I think you can too, dear listener. I really think it's possible.
All right.
Yeah. Let's wrap up on this high note.
All right, that's another episode in the bag.
Yeah, great episode. By the way, if you're stuck second guessing your work or trying to figure out your next move, drop a question in the comments or leave a review. We might actually feature you in one of our future episodes.
And if you got any value from this episode, hit subscribe wherever you're listening. It helps more than you think.
You can find everything else, resources, articles, and more at designtablepodcast.com.
Thanks for being here.
See you next time.